Hello, hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Jeune, Maman podcast, where we talk about all things postpartum, motherhood, pregnancy, tips and tricks, and more, all from a Senegalese American perspective. I'm super excited for today's episode because I have a guest speaker with me, and I'm not even going to take too much of your time. I just want to give her the opportunity to introduce herself so we can get right into the conversation. I'm super, super excited. Codou, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, Isa too. Hello to all your listeners. Thank you for having me on your podcast. My name is Codou Diop, and I am a mom of two. I am Senegalese, obviously, and I live in Austin, Texas. And I'm very happy to be a guest on your podcast today.
Thank you. How are you dealing with that Austin heat?
Oh man, normally we're used to it. I mean, this is the only place I've lived in since I moved to the US back in 2008, I think. Yeah, 2008. So I should be used to it, but this year especially, this year was the hottest year I'd say since 2011. That's the only year where it was this hot or even hotter. But it's bad. It's really so hard, but I mostly stay home. I'm either home where I have my AC or I'm in the car. But when I have to be outside, my son started soccer again, the new season a couple of weeks ago. So being at games in this heat is so hard, but it's almost over. Usually around Halloween is when it cools down. So we have at least probably a month or a month and a half until it cools down. But yeah, it's bad.
No, I feel like this year it's been bad all around. Even Atlanta has hot days.
Yeah, it's been hot a little bit everywhere. It's been hot for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
So much going on in the world. Just yesterday I was seeing the news articles about the earthquake in Morocco. Prayers
Oh my
out to
God.
them.
Yes. I saw that when I woke up this morning. When I woke up this morning for Fajr, I'm like, oh my God, it's global warming. For sure. Because why would Morocco all of a sudden start having earthquakes?
I know. They say it's the worst one in 120 years. So, I mean, lifetimes ago is when they had this. Yeah. Praying for them. Hopefully, a lot of coverage.
I mean.
All right. So to get into the podcast topic of the day, Senegalese motherhood. I mean, that's what this whole podcast is about. So I want to start off by asking you, Codou, how would you describe Senegalese motherhood in a few sentences?
For me, Senegalese motherhood is really about love, strength, and a deep reverence for tradition. For me, there's a balance of nurturing, discipline, and also instilling values that really honor our heritage, especially when you're a Senegalese mother that's not in Senegal. For me, instilling culture and traditions is really important because our kids spend all of their time with people that are not part of the culture, and they are not, if you live in a community where there are not a lot of Senegalese people or where they don't have the opportunity to connect with Senegalese people, for me it's very important to instill that in them. So yeah, I don't know, that's how I see it.
So, in trying to instill those traditions and values, what are some actions that you take, in your everyday life or just in general, to make sure that they are appreciating everything that, is good and comes with our culture?
I make sure that, first of all, they have a connection with my family. So I don't have family here at all. I have one uncle that lives in Detroit, and then I have, nieces and nephews. But in Austin, I don't have family. But we do have a small community of people here. And I make sure that whenever there's events that they, that I attend with my kids, that they see other Senegalese kids and that they, have Senegalese friends. So that's something I try to do, but make sure that they are also connected to my family, like that we're calling and doing FaceTime calls, that they are having conversations with family all the time. But then just like having constant, not reminders, maybe reminders of the culture, like around surrounding us in the house, or playing Senegalese music, watching Senegalese shows, but also telling them about the culture, about where I'm from, about like what it was growing up in Senegal, about what's important and what are the differences between our culture and the American culture, things like that. I mean, you as a parent, you try, but then the kids, do whatever and decide and take their own path. But I do try my hardest to expose them to the culture, and constantly remind them of values, because we are in a country where a lot of the values we have, they are not shared values with the people that they are friends with or go to school with. So I just try to expose them to Senegalese culture.
I love that. I think that's a very realistic approach where, you put your best foot forward, you do the best that you can, and then, you let, kind of the cookies crumble how they may, because I think that's something, at least for me growing up, and now that I have my own baby, I'm trying to find that balance of how much do I want to tell them and control and do all these things versus just letting them also have their own experiences. So
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's absolutely very important to do that. So in general, like Senegalese and African, like African in general, I'd say way of parenting is just, you do whatever I say, you do. But we have to realize that, like, as parents, we do our best. I mean, we try our best, and we make mistakes too, right? Because there's no handbook on how you parent. So you just try. And after that, you just got to be able to let them make their own decisions and make their own mistakes. So, that's something I try to do, like just control myself and not try to dictate everything in their lives and what they need to do. But, mine are still young, but I'm trying.
No, I'm telling you, it's a journey. Even though mine is only 8 months, I'm thinking about that already. Like, okay, what parent do I want to be? And it's a trade-off between how you interact with them in the younger years versus the payoff of what kind of relationship you'll have with them.
You're going to have in the future. Yeah. I mean, these younger years matter too.
Yeah.
But like, would you say, for your experience growing up here, I guess you grew up here, right?
I did. I came here when I was 8.
Right. So did your parents raise you as if you were in Senegal in terms of values and rules, or were they more like like more Western type of education, more lenient on certain things?
No, I would say my parents are very, very traditional, even to this day. I always tell them, like, you guys came here 20 years ago and you still act like you're in Senegal. I feel like growing up, and it wasn't as prevalent, or I guess I wasn't as conscious of it growing up, because at the time, when you're a child or when you're a teenager, a lot of things just get told to you. It wasn't until I became an adult and felt like, oh, I finally should be able to have agency over my own life and be able to advocate for myself and make my own decisions, that you start to realize, wow, there's still a hold on me. My parents still very much expect me to act as if I was raised in Senegal, to make decisions as if I have the same experience as someone in Senegal. And exposure matters. The things that you're exposed to here, the things that you see, they have an influence on how you make decisions and how you want to live your life. So to this day, I still feel like there's a gap between how I see motherhood and how I see that parenting should go. versus their experience. And of course, my experience is heavily influenced by what I've seen here. So I see like, oh, parents sitting down and talking with kids about certain topics, seeing it as taboo. Whereas for them, their experience is still purely like, this is how a Senegalese parent should act with their child. So we have those classes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, for them also, it's even though they are in a foreign country, that's all they know, right? So for them also, they're hanging on to those traditions and those cultures. It's hard to like just switch and you know, let go and give you the freedom of making your own decisions and things like that, because that's just like the Senegalese way of parenting. So it's not easy for them to do that, for sure.
They definitely don't adopt the when in Rome notion. They still, like, I think even if they were here 50 years, they would still act this way.
Same way.
It's not good or bad or either. It just is. I think for me, though, what I try to do is kind of, I try to be as realistic as possible. I think that's one way of mitigating like disappointment. If you bring your children here, or if your children were born here, there has to be an acceptance factor of like, okay, the reality that they're going to face is very different from maybe what I faced.
Very different. Yeah, very different.
Just anticipating that, I think, would
help. Absolutely. You're right. Yep.
So, Codou, if you could tell your 15-year-old self about Senegalese motherhood, what kind of heads up would you give her to prepare for?
I would say that, like all motherhood in general, not just Senegalese motherhood, that is a journey of continuous learning and being able to adapt. Embracing like the wisdom of, our parents, our ancestors, but also really trust in your intuition. It's okay to seek help, and advice, from your elders, from your moms, your aunts, your uncles. But just like give yourself some grace. You're going to make some mistakes as a parent. You are going to, reproduce probably some of the same mistakes that your own parents made, your own mother made. Definitely, I try to catch myself. I'm like, oh my God, like when I'm yelling and screaming, okay, that's not, oh no, maybe you should approach it this way. But I am not afraid. Like, don't be afraid to admit when you were wrong, and just establish a relationship of trust and be like openness, that your kids know that they can always talk to you about anything. Definitely it's not going to be an easy journey, but just be able to learn from your mistakes as a mother, and there's no handbook to this, and give yourself some grace.
I like that. It definitely is a journey. And it's not until you're kind of going through it that you realize, one, this is for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Once you're a mother, it's it. That's it. But I like that last point you made about kind of being humble when it comes to making mistakes, because I think that's something we don't get much of. I don't know about, other African countries, but Senegalese countries, definitely. I remember I was on the phone with my parents, just FaceTiming so they could see my daughter. And she was like just crying. And I was like, oh, Balma. Like I was saying sorry, just jokingly, because I think I had said something, and I'm like, oh, she doesn't like when you tell her, things. I was just joking. And my dad was like, oh, don't apologize to her. It's not good for her.
Oh yeah. I do hear that a lot. Mom.
I did not.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that to be the response.
Yeah.
Because one, I was joking, but two, it did make me pause, and then I had to go and I think that's something we do too in our culture. I mean, in our generation, is we do a lot of research. So I go to Google and I type apologize.
Googled it.
I put this one at the end of it. I'm like,
That's
what is the
funny.
ruling on this? But I think that is a pull that we have, like a push-pull relationship between the
Mm,
religion and the culture too. So I like that point you made about just accepting, even if you're not sitting your child down and saying, hey, I made this mistake, but you as a parent being understanding of the fact that you could make mistakes, that you're
yeah,
not, omnipotent, you don't know everything. And so,
absolutely.
that's interesting. That's an interesting point you made that made me think about that interaction with my dad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Senegalese parents do not apologize.
No.
So that's and then we don't discuss things as well. We throw everything under the rug. So like when you're here, I feel like in the US, in the West in general, like France or whatever, people
Mm-hmm.
talk about a lot about childhood traumas and I was
Mm-hmm.
so scarred by this, scarred by that. So it always makes me think, I sit down and think back and I was like, and I'm like, wow, like as Senegalese kids raised by Senegalese parents, the amount of trauma. But then
Mm-hmm.
I never hold. I just like think about it lightly. It's not that serious to me. But if I really sit down and think about it, you think about wow, how parents
Mm-hmm.
parents beat up their kids and stuff like that. That's
Yeah.
really, really a lot of trauma there. But we don't think about it that way, right? We've just it's just normal, right? That for us.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about this newer generation, right? You and I are not part of the same generation, but when you think about it nowadays, you're like, wow, that was real life like trauma
Yeah.
/ abuse. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I actually want to double click on something you said about not taking it too seriously. I think
Mm-hmm.
I myself struggle with that because I'm like, how could that have happened? And it's not that I've gone through this super traumatic experience. I don't want that to be like
Mm-hmm.
misconstrued. I think just in general, though, there are people like me who have
Mm-hmm.
gone through maybe just like mild, like ambiguous, like could that have been emotional abuse? Maybe, maybe not. But then there are folks who have truly gone through just abuse, like straight up abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And now as adults, they struggle with that relationship with their parents. They struggle to see their parents in a nice light. How would
Mm-hmm.
you, what kind of advice would you have around that? And how did you get to a point where you were able to not take things so seriously when it comes to how you were raised?
I would say that in those situations, what makes it even harder is that, like I said, we don't talk
Mm-hmm.
about things, right? Everything is like pushed under the rug, right?
Yeah.
I think that therapy is definitely something that helps because usually your parents, Senegalese parents or African parents, do not allow like a safe space where you would say, let's talk about these things that happened.
Yeah.
And let me tell you how I felt about these things. Usually, I'm not going to say all Senegalese parents or all African. Usually, they don't allow you those spaces where you can actually talk about these things
Mm-hmm.
that have happened and that have deeply affected you, right? So therapy, I would say, is what would help, or maybe insist on having those conversations. But for me, I'm taking it lightly because just I don't know how to explain it because I guess there's nothing else to do, right?
Yeah.
Because I know that there will never come a time where your parents would just be okay. I am sorry for these things, and again, I think that they were just trying to do the best. Like it was just the culture. That's just how they didn't know any better. That's just how, they think that, okay, if you whip your child, he or she's gonna listen, and they're just trying to raise a good kid.
Yep.
Right? So as crazy as it may sound, for me, it's just like I don't hold a grudge because I was literally whipped as a child. I'm not holding any grudges when it comes to that. I think back to it, but it's not like I'm holding a grudge. But that's just me. Maybe somebody else will be really affected by it, but that's just my nature. Yeah. You know, but I think therapy is really good for those things.
That's very good insight. And I agree on the therapy piece. I've been to therapy myself. And I remember a time when, like, after a couple of sessions, my therapist was like, "Are you here for you or for your mom?" And I'm like, wait a minute. But I think there is a lot of baggage that we carry, and we have to deal with that.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we're not going to have good relationships with our parents. And like, I don't want this to sound like African parents or Senegalese parents are just bad. That's not what it is.
No.
It's just a difference in viewpoint, right? And approach. Yeah. And so I think it's beneficial more to us. It's like, you know, when they say forgiveness is for you, not the other person. I think this is one of those cases where coming to terms and peace with how you were raised and being thankful for the fact that you're here to talk about it. I think that in and of itself is really huge, is going to do light years for your emotional development.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's just a parenting style. Is it the best parenting style? No, it's not. But it's not just Senegalese parents that,
I agree.
It's, you can find it here too with Americans too. It's just like a style of parenting. But I think we just have to be open to, having different approaches and, listening to kids. And I mean, it's not easy. Like being a parent, I think is the hardest job ever. It's the most rewarding one. But like before, if you told me, I never before having kids, I never want to be a parent. I don't want, as a mother, you're always looked at as a woman. You're always looked at when you say it's frowned upon when a woman says, I don't ever want kids. Before, I don't think I would have understood. If someone told me I don't want kids, I'd be like, what? But I can see why someone wouldn't want that for themselves, because it's a huge responsibility. Like you'll never, even when your kids grow up and go and have their own kids, their own lives, it's just like the constant worry. Are they doing good? Like for me, they're your responsibility forever, even though they are going to be adults living their own lives. I don't think I'll ever stop worrying about my kids. So I understand the people that just want to live life and not have to, maybe they have a dog or a cat. I wouldn't change anything. I would not want to be a mother. But I can understand people that decide, like my daughter, Yasmin, she's like, I am not sure I will have kids, because she's like, the life I want to live, I don't want. So she's asking me, will you be disappointed if I don't give you grandkids? I said, yes, I would be, but I'm not going to force you to have kids. But yeah, she said she doesn't know yet if she wants to travel. She said she doesn't want the responsibility. I said, okay, Yasmin.
I'll tell you, I'm in that same boat where I too understand when people say they don't want to have kids.
Yeah.
It's a huge responsibility. And I'm at the point now where with one baby, I'm like, maybe I'll be okay with just this one. Like, I hope if I end up having more, I hope they don't hear this and like, wait, you don't want me. No, that's not the case at all. But it's a lot of work and it's a huge responsibility. Your life changes a whole 180 when you have a baby. And it's a lifelong responsibility, like we talked about. So I completely understand when people are like, maybe this is not what I want. And to be unsure too. I think it's safe to be unsure.
Yeah.
And I know that your daughter vocalized that to you because you didn't shut her down and say, no, I definitely need, obviously that would not be the response of a lot of people. So I commend you for that. And I like that you guys are having conversations about it, because it's not something that, you wait until she's 25, married, and then you have the conversation. We tend to do that a lot in our culture. Have conversations.
Like, when are you guys having a kid? When are you giving me grandkids? I mean, I would love grandkids. I wanted to have 5 kids. But let me tell you, when I had one, like the first one or the second, I think second one, really, my son was like, okay, this is it. But I think it has also to do with the fact that I am here and not in Senegal. So the support you get, like in Senegal, you have your house help, right? So I would have had my family, like the support.
Yeah.
the burden, like, I don't want to call it burden, but like everything you have to do yourself
Yeah.
makes it so hard. I think if I lived in Senegal, maybe I would have had more than two. But I just think that, here, daycare, doing just everything yourself, having no one to help. I think that's what made me, say, two, that's it. And I was lucky, thank Allah, that I have one boy, one girl. And I'm like, okay, that's it. I have one of each. That is it. But I think if I was in Senegal, I had help, surrounded by family, maybe I would have had like 3, 4,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Definitely. I can see that, because here, I mean, doing everything by yourself, it's not easy. So you automatically start being like, you start calculating, like, wait a minute.
And the cost too.
Yes.
The cost too. So yeah.
I have, I consider myself a feminist. And so I have a gender related question for you. How would you view gender roles in your household? You mentioned having one boy, one girl. How do you balance that with like the Senegalese culture and how we typically do things which is very patriarchal?
Yeah, no, I am, everyone works, like, cause growing up in Senegal, the girls in the household would be doing everything, right? Brothers that was not my case. My brother, when we did grand ménage on Sundays, everyone was working. It was not just the girls, but usually in Senegal, the boys in the household don't do anything. All the chores fall on the girls. So I try to make sure, my son is younger than my daughter, but everyone works, everyone participates. But like, he has tendencies of like, me and my daughter were just having this conversation with him, where he's saying, oh, girl, like, we're talking about girls soccer, because he plays soccer. And I'm like, the way you're talking is just like very macho. I said, no. So I'm always correcting. I'm teaching him, okay, how do you speak to girls? I'm constantly correcting, because it's my job to make sure that he doesn't go out there and just be a jerk and because if I let it go, I think like I can really see him being this macho that's walking around and thinking that guys are better than I think as parents, you just have to, you're the one that creates that balance. You make sure that, they are equal in the house. Everybody does chores, but also I'm trying to frame his mind, and just like, it's a lot, because he's this boy. He like the stuff he says, I'm like, no, like, let's have a debate. And he loves to debate. But yeah, I think as parents, we'd have to instill those values and make sure that, especially as parents, because I don't want my child to in the future have a wife and not be the best gentleman that he can be. I think that falls on me as a mother. So I try. We'll see how he turns out, because sometimes he says things I'm like, no. But yeah. And they're influenced by, like, they have friends, because the majority of their time, they don't spend it with me, with the family. They're out there in school, they're talking to their friends, they're on TikTok or whatever. So it's hard to control, like, what kind of media they consume. Like, you can't control everything. So anyways, it's not easy.
That's a hard balance, because as they get older, like you said, they're spending less time at home and more time with friends, and naturally they're going to start developing these ideas. But I think when I was listening to your story, one thing that really stuck with me, and I want to make sure I implement this in my life too, is like just constant communication. If you don't know of something, you can't rectify it, right? So if you guys weren't talking and you weren't paying attention to the things he's saying, you wouldn't be able to have a conversation about it. And I really like it, because we have to, like, in this day and age, I feel like we just have to always be talking.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like, you never know what kind of ideas like they get from school, from their friends and everything, like the things. That's why, like, it has to be open communication.
Yeah.
Because
like, let our guards down so our kids can come and talk to us about anything.
Yeah, I know it's hard sometimes, they say stuff that maybe shock you. I try to control myself to not, say what, like scream and like just probing, and then being able to have those conversations where you kind of, give them your point of view and try to understand where they're coming from. And I mean, it's hard. It's
definitely
not easy.
Even like sibling relationship, like my younger siblings, I try to toe the line between like being that cool sister that they can talk to versus like the second parent who, I think I saw a video, someone had made a TikTok about it where they were like, me trying to control my face when my little sister tells me something. I'm like, wait, you're going over the line now. Like this balance of all these like relationship dynamics that we have, but especially between parent and child, it's like never want to be that helicopter parent who stifles their development. But at the same time, our jobs at the end of the day is to protect this human being and to, make sure they're secure.
Yeah.
And it's just a big responsibility.
It is for sure. It is.
All right. So I have one last question for you. And so that is, what is one tradition that you would completely banish? And what is one that you will keep no matter what, at least to the best of your ability when it comes to the Senegalese culture?
One that I would keep is just like how we, as families, we always eat together and spend time together. Like if you go to a Senegalese family, right, in Senegal, most of the time, all meals are spent together. And in my house growing up, like the early, like first 9 years of my life, I grew up in, like we were in my like the family house, house, like on my mother's side, so we were part of the bigger family. And the best times for me were like around the lunch, and just like eating, but like having those conversations and connecting and laughing and spending time together. So like that togetherness and spending time with family and making sure that those are those moments where you sit down and as a family and talk and share. So I like that.
Yeah.
Having that family time together. I don't know if I see it as tradition. I don't know if it's tradition, but that's what came to mind. One tradition I would banish. I don't know. I don't know. I would say the one where the grown up is always right. Like stay in a child's place, the grown up is always right. Like,
yeah.
Holiday and place, I don't know how to say it, where you have no say in anything.
Yeah.
If I'm talking about being a parent, right? That's something I would banish, where we're just like, the fact that you don't allow kids to express themselves, we're not helping them, because when they go out there in the world, when they are in the workplace, and I was like this when I started working. I never expressed myself. Like, you're always afraid of consequences. So never, you would always say yes to everything pretty much.
Yep.
And never, always afraid to, in front of like authority, to say how you feel, what you feel when you disagree with someone. I'd say that's what I would banish.
I would echo both of those things. I probably need to give this some thought on my own as well. But just hearing you talk about it, it fully resonated with me, because especially that last part about like it has repercussions as an adult where you're very docile or you're not able to advocate for yourself. Even down to like salary negotiation, you might think that whatever is given to you is just what you need to accept.
Yeah,
so I think there's so much disservice that we do when we don't let kids express themselves. And I think, this is like going into like a dark path. But like, even when it comes to like SA, like kids feel comfortable saying things. But I feel like because we stifle them so much, sometimes they don't even feel comfortable expressing when they're going through traumatic experiences like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Codou. I am so
Oh,
appreciative
thank
of
you.
this time. I hear my baby crying in the background.
Yes.
So enjoy together. But this was such an amazing interview. I really appreciate
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for having me. It was great spending time with you.
I follow you so much. I mean, I follow you on social media, and I just love seeing how you parent. I feel like I can see how you parent through your page, and it's because it's done with love and transparency, and like your kids, they look like they have so much fun around you. And I was like, I just really need to talk to her about Senegalese mother. I feel like she's
Oh, you're so nice. It's not always it's not always fun and all of that. I try.
yeah.
I try. I do make a lot of mistakes, but I do talk to them and we
Mm-hmm.
do communicate a lot. I have things I need to work on as well as a mother. It is so far from being perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I do make a lot of mistakes myself. I have a very short temper. I'm not a patient. I may seem like a patient person. I am a big Aries, not patient at all. So, but my kids and we talk.
Yeah.
And one thing I do all the time is apologize and say, oh, maybe I shouldn't have yelled like that. But what should you have done better yourself as well? Da, da, da. But yeah, it's not perfect over here.
Yeah.
So, you just do your best, and it's not easy, but yeah. Thank you for your kind words.
Of course, of course. Thank you. And I want to thank all my listeners for tuning in to this episode. And with that, I will give you a rendezvous for the next episode. Thank you all.